is a Marxist from Argentina. First pope that ever came from South America. He hates capitalism. He's supposed to be the pontiff for the Catholic Church, their spiritual leader. But there's an article here. Pope Francis disses Trump's wall, compares populists to Hitler. So Pope Francis used strong language to condemn populism this last Sunday, suggesting that it gains followers through fear, as Hitler did in the 30s. So if you are proud of your country and you want there to be immigration laws, then you are, as a citizen of that country, you are being duped like the Germans did under Hitler. He said, quote, "I see that many people of goodwill, not only Catholics, are a bit gripped by fear, which is the usual message for populism," unquote. The Pope told reporters aboard the papal plane returning from Morocco to Rome. Quote, "They sow fear and make decisions. Fear is the beginning of dictatorships," unquote, he said. Quote, "Let's go back to the last century, to the fall of the Weimar Republic. I repeat this a lot. Germany needed a way out with promises and fears, and Hitler came forward. We know the results. Let's learn from history. This is not new. To sow fear is to make a harvest of cruelty, closures, and even sterility." Francis then took issue with President Trump's border wall and other border fencing going up the Spanish enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla. Asked specifically about the two walls, the Pope warned that builders of walls, whether they are razor wire or brick, will become prisoners of the walls they build. That's history. So, what do you do then, Pope? Just let everybody in, huh? It's mind-boggling to me. Can you imagine how many people would pour in our country if we had open borders? Fully open borders. How many terrorists? How much drugs? How much more human trafficking? It'd be unfathomable. The Pope said lastly, quote, "This isn't a way to solve the great problem of immigration. I understand a government with this problem has a hot potato that needs to resolve it in another way. I once spoke to a politician, a man that I respect, and I will say the name Alexis Trispars," he said. And speaking of this and the accords not to let migrants in, he explained the difficulties to me, but in the end, he spoke to me from the heart and said this phrase: "Human rights takes precedence over arguments." This sentence deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Human rights. The left argues it's a human right to enter the United States of America. They're entitled to it because we have wealth. Well, there's an article here from the Vatican. It says the Vatican Cardinal, he says encouraging immigration misrepresents the gospel. The prominent Vatican Cardinal Robert Sarah said, and his newly released book is causing furor in Europe, saying it's wrong to use the word of God to promote migration. The Guinean Cardinal Perfect of the Vatican's Congregation for Divine Worship said that using the Bible to promote migration constitutes false exegesis. That means improper interpretation of the scriptures, adding that it's better to, quote, help people flourish in their culture than to encourage them, in their case, to come to Europe. In an interview last week, the Cardinal condemned the Church's push for migration into Europe in the strongest terms, insisting that most migrants wind up without work or dignity and assume the conditions of slaves. Is that what the Church wants, he said. I don't know. I think the difficulty that I have, and probably you too, is that I don't know of a plan that President Trump or anybody's putting out there on how to do a macro reversal of all of this. And I don't know if the country is up for it. I don't know. If not, if the 40, 50 million people keep having children and more people keep coming in, it's just a matter of time. I'm 51. Give it 20, 30 years. The country will be unrecognizable. It will be. That if you lived where I did and you would saw what I saw, if you just walked around with me for a couple days, you would understand what I'm talking about. And I can't dwell on this every show, so I'm not going to. But President Trump, I thought, was going to take one of those stands and say, you know what, if one more wave comes over Mexico, tariffs on your cars, we're shutting down the border. I'm putting 50,000 troops coming down on the border. I mean, if it was up to me, I would tell Mexico, hey, just so you know, I'm going in your country 5 miles inside your country, and I'm going to turn away these people inside your country so then they don't have the asylum rights because they didn't make it to my border. That's what I would do. I know it's not legal, but something extreme has to happen here. Something has to happen. We can't just 14,000, 125,000 people. Schools are overrun all over the place. Now, while all this is going on, right, the left is saying there's no emergency because there's less people today than there was in 2000, so migration is slowing down. And like I said in that article, but then if you say, hey, Democrats, the people coming across now, the 3, 4, 500, 1 million are people with children who don't get sent back versus the million that were coming over in 2000, men looking for work, that a lot of them were getting sent back immediately. It's a totally different dynamic here. But the left chooses to be ignorant. They don't want to look at this. They just don't want to think. They just want to deceive. While that's going on, there's several liberal states, and they think that they have a workaround for the Electoral College vote. They know that there's no way to get a constitutional amendment through to get rid of the Electoral College. And I've been saying this for a while, that I think we're headed toward a civil war. Because if the left was to get control of the presidency, the House, and the Senate, they would go after guns. And then they would give amnesty to tens of millions of people. And the citizens here that are fed up, if they come in after their guns, then they would have violence. Not calling for that. I just think that's what would happen. So there's a list of states that have been talking to each other, and they put together something called a compact. It's just like an agreement between states. And there's something called the popular national vote. So New Mexico has become the latest state that it went through their assembly, through their state senate, and signed by the governor that said, we're joining the compact. We're going to, as a state, we're going to require that the Electoral College representatives from our states, they have to vote for whoever won the national vote, popular vote. So it doesn't matter now in New Mexico if this was to go through. If the people of New Mexico in 2020 voted for President Trump, so let's say President Trump got 58% of the vote and Hillary Clinton got 42%, just to keep it simple. As of right now, New Mexico, before they went ahead and signed this, and if the compact, if the compact doesn't go in, it stays the way it is. But as of right now, if there is 6 electoral college, let's see, how many do they have? 13. I'm sorry, they have 5. So as of right now, if President Trump won New Mexico by the popular vote for the state of New Mexico, the 5 Electoral College delegates would vote at their annual meeting. At the meeting to confirm the president, who the president's going to be. They would have to say New Mexico is going to give its 5 to this person. So if President Trump won the state, then he would get the 5. If Bernie Sanders was running and he won the state, he would get the 5. But in this compact, the national popular vote, since New Mexico now joined 13 other states along with the District of Columbia, who has 3 electoral college votes, and they are all part of the national popular vote interstate compact. Now, if Bernie Sanders won the national totals, taking all of the state counts and adding them up, if Bernie Sanders in this scenario had more total votes when he add up all the states than President Trump, okay, then the Electoral College would have to go to Bernie Sanders, even if President Trump won the state of New Mexico. So their plan is, if we can get 270 Electoral College votes and the states in the compact all agree to do this, then we will decide. We states will go around the Constitution. Now, this is unconstitutional what they're doing, but they're pushing forward because they're in a civil war with us. So who are the other states? Let's see. Last month, Delaware House of Representatives passed a similar bill. Colorado Governor Jared Polis, Democrat, quietly signed the bill in. So the states now are Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Washington, Vermont, California, Rhode Island, New York, Colorado, and the Delaware House of Representatives, and now New Mexico. They've all signed on to this. It's lawlessness. It's anti-democracy as a democratic republic, constitutional republic. It's wrong, but they don't care. They don't care what you think in Nebraska, Oklahoma, Missouri, Louisiana, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Kansas. They don't care. Because if they get New York on here and they get some other big states and they get up to 270, then we'll have an election and they're all going to try to do this and it's going to go to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional, but can you imagine the chaos? These are the things that the left are doing while we're focusing on the fake Russia collusion hoax. This is going on. While we were staring at the Russian hoax, 1.5 million more legal aliens plus came in. Millions and millions of people. More H-1 visas were extended in the last omnibus bill that President Trump signed. So more foreign workers can come in. And I just read that article earlier. More and more people on visa overstays are killing people. But yeah, they were here on an H-2 visa. They overstayed it, and then they killed the guy. They ran the person over. They were drunk driving, raped somebody. Now, we can do this every night, but I just have to find out, do you think, you can go on social media, you can put Civil War 2020, hashtag Civil War 2020. Do you think that America is going to rise up and going to do a radical, take huge flip in the House and pick up more seats in the Senate, get President Trump elected, rewrite all the immigration laws, get them pushed through, and then deport? Do you think America is up for this? Because that's what it's going to take. And it has to happen in 2020. Can't happen, President Trump delaying a year on shutting down the wall, shutting down the border. We're waiting a year. We're going to wait till after 2020 on Obamacare. Well, may have been why in Obamacare, an article that just came up. It's 10:44 out here in California as we're finishing up the show. This is from the Washington Examiner. Must win Ohio